On December 23rd, 1954, Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier, premiered on Walt Disney's Disneyland. This weekly program aired on ABC each week and served as a way for Walt Disney to highlight and promote his brand new park, set to open in 1955. Davy Crockett was an instant hit, and little boys across the nation now wanted to don raccoon skin caps and carry a pistol just like Davy. The pioneering spirit of the westward expansion of America was a point of pride for Walt and many other Americans. Live-action features like The Living Desert and The Vanishing Prairie preceded Davy Crockett. Together, these films let the rest of America experience what life was like out west, in full color. In addition, they set the tone and atmosphere for what Walt wanted one of his 5 themed lands to be: Frontierland.
Well, now you got into this mess by going down a waterfall. Now, how would you suppose we get them out of there?
By going up the waterfall?
That's right. Anything's possible in Disneyland.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Up the Waterfall, Season 3, with your hosts, Zanna and Scott Otis.
Hello.
We are here to bring you Disney history deep dives.
Oh, my.
From our own childhood experiences to hard facts and everything in between. And we're excited to be here and be back to bring you the history, the early history of Frontierland in Disneyland.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm very excited for this one because, as you mentioned, I actually kind of lived this one little bit.
You're old.
I am pretty old. Basically some Frontierland pre-Big Thunder Mountain.
Yes.
So that's kind of what we're going to be discussing
I think
today.
that's a good chunk of time to discuss,
Yeah.
because really so much happened and so much changed in the early years of Disneyland. And certainly, we've done Tomorrowland in 1967 before, which was like a huge change then. And I think this is a big time for change as well.
Yeah, I've always been excited about Frontierland, and here at Disney World, Big Thunder Mountain is actually my favorite attraction at Disney World. But I do have very faint memories of some of the earlier attractions at Disneyland, and when I started to do some research on this, I couldn't believe it. It was there was a lot more than even I had known, and
Really?
I was quite fascinated by it. So.
Wow. Well, I hope you'll share with the class.
I will try.
I'm always jealous of the fact that you got to experience Mine Train through Nature's Wonderland.
Yeah, and
as
pack
well
mules.
as, oh my gosh, you did pack mules too?
Oh, yeah.
I guess I forgot that.
Mule pack through Nature's Wonderland.
Wow. Well, let's jump right in. What's
Okay.
First on your list?
Well, I was going to say, I was going to read Walt Disney's original proposal for Disneyland for Frontier Country, which is what it was then.
Yes.
Basically, where the stagecoach meets the train and the riverboat for its trip down the river to New Orleans. Along Frontier Street is a harness shop and a blacksmith shop, livery stable, assayer's office, sheriff's office, and the jail. You can get real Western food at the Chuck Wagon, and cowboy clothes, 6-shooters, or a silver-mounted saddle for your horse or pony at the general store.
You could buy saddles for real?
No,
Oh.
this was the proposal.
Oh, I see. Right.
There's
I
a
forgot
shooting
already.
gallery, the Wells Fargo Express office, and an old-fashioned saloon with the longest little bar in the world serving root beer, Western style. At the end of Frontier Street is the boat landing for the riverboat ride. The old sternwheeler takes you downstream on a nostalgic cruise past the romantic river towns, Tom Sawyer's birthplace, and the old southern plantations. So it kind of gives you an idea of the whole idea of Frontierland. As you had mentioned, a lot of the films, the Westerns were a very popular genre, and certainly Walt Disney had gotten into them as well, with, as you mentioned, Davy Crockett and the King of the Wild Frontier. Zorro was a very famous one, of course, even animated, Pecos Bill, Texas John Slaughter, and quite a lot more. So just the whole idea of the westward expansion, lawmen in the Old West, and even cowboys and Indians. back in the day.
It was a wild frontier.
That's right. When Disneyland opened, Frontierland was actually the largest of all the original lands.
It was mostly piles of dirt, wasn't it?
It really was. When you walked in, the ground was dirt. They did have kind of like wooden sidewalks on the sides. But yeah, the middle of the street was dirt. It didn't last too long, but yeah. If you actually look at the original artwork of Frontierland, they actually have Indian encampments right outside the fort, right by the hub. And, that kind of clashed with the whole idea of Main Street, so that didn't last. But they did actually install kind of like artificial tree stumps to give you the idea that these were the trees that were cut down to create this fort.
That's fun.
Yeah. It kind of gave you the idea that like there was with that, as I mentioned, the original artwork with the Indian encampments right there, there actually were Indian villages farther in.
Yeah.
And actually were moved several times, and I will get to that in a little bit. Another thing that they were going to have is a Frontierland miniature museum.
He
that
was
actually
obsessed
never.
with miniatures.
I know. That actually never came to be, but they did have a Davy Crockett museum instead.
How have I missed this?
Well, it was gone by the time you went there first, but they actually had wax figures of Davy Crockett and Georgie Russell in there.
Like life size?
Yeah.
Weird.
That people could go and have their photos taken with. But actually, the real life Davy Crockett and Georgie Russell, played by Fess Parker and Buddy Ebsen, they actually went to Disneyland. They were there on opening day. They actually rode some of Walt's retired polo ponies up Main Street and into Frontierland, as you'll see in the opening day special. They actually did a whole routine there. But there would be several times where those two would actually return to the park and just kind of like, meet their adoring fans. Because
That's
literally,
crazy to think about.
Davy Crockett and the King of the Wild Frontier premiered earlier that year. So it was the hottest thing ever, as you had mentioned in the intro.
Yeah.
So when they showed up, it was all bets were off. They actually had live characters like there was a Sheriff Lucky, Black Bart, and even Pecos Bill, as portrayed by Wally Bogue, who was in the Golden Horseshoe show. He actually created kind of some of the live shows out on the streets where they would maybe have shootouts or things like that.
So let me ask you this, and this
Okay.
may throw you for a loop because it's not Disneyland, but how much of this do you think was inspired by or, borrowed from Knott's Berry Farm?
I would
which
say
existed before this.
it did.
And
I
they
would
had a
say
big Western.
Walt and Walter Knott were actually friends. They weren't just like bitter rivals or
Right.
anything like that. And so Walt Disney went to Knott's Berry Farm to check it out and see what kind of thing was going on. But he had his own, he had done plenty of movies by this point.
That's true.
Plenty of experience, and I think he probably took some ideas on maybe like crowd control and things like that. But they did have like an old West town out there, and the old Calico mine and all that.
Yeah.
So I
always
say,
wonder that, and I expected it to be in that biography that I read.
Oh yeah.
But it wasn't. So that made me think it was even more of like, no one talks about this.
I would say there was probably some inspiration there, I would say.
All right.
A couple of opening day attractions. Let me go through some of those.
Yes.
They actually had the Disneyland Railroad. And if you think about going through the front gates of Frontierland, if you go all the way to where the railroad station is now in New Orleans Square, that's how big Frontierland was.
Wow. That's
There
crazy
wasn't
to
a
think about.
lot way deep down that way.
Right.
But there was the railroad station, and there were actually only two stations when the park opened. There was Main Street Station and this Frontierland Station, and there were only two railroads that operated initially. The cars that the passenger or the guests would ride were actually cattle cars, where you would stand up.
Yeah, that's insane to think about.
Yeah, and I think we'll actually include some photos of that. It's absolutely nuts, and that didn't last too long.
I'm
and
sure.
they eventually installed seats, but even so, with the seats, because of how cattle cars are, there wasn't a lot of great visibility. And so it didn't take too long before all of that was replaced by regular cars with regular seats the way that we now know. They also have, of course, had the Golden Horseshoe Review. So that was a very popular show that actually ended up in the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest running stage show in history.
And you have a personal connection to that show, which I know we've told before, but I'm going to make you tell the story again.
It is fun. Yeah, I saw it when I was a kid. Don Novus was eventually changed out by Fulton Burley, another Irish tenor. But it basically starred Wally Bogue as Pecos Bill and the Traveling Salesman. And by this point, Fulton Burley. But then Betty Taylor was their longtime Slewfoot Sue. And there was a scene in the show where she would actually use her mirror kind of to shine a light on an unsuspecting guest and then go down there and plant a big wet kiss on his cheek. And she chose me. And I think this was like my 7th birthday or something like that. So I was real young, super embarrassed. But yeah, that was actually my first kiss. It was from Betty Taylor.
Aww. There's
long
a little
time.
plaque there that says that, I think.
Yeah. Another opening day attraction, of course, was the Mark Twain steamboat that I had mentioned before, which was an authentic replica of an 1850 sternwheeler from the Mississippi River. The hull of the Mark Twain was built at Todd Shipyards in Long Beach, California, to authentic detail.
Proportions,
but all of the rest of the boat was built on the studio lot. And then they brought the hull to Disneyland, and they brought the all of the other parts from the studio, and they put them together, and they fit perfectly.
Hooray.
As you would imagine. And, of course, the Mark Twain was christened on the opening day broadcast by actress Irene Dunn using a giant champagne bottle filled with, not champagne, but water from rivers across America, including the Mississippi.
That's fun.
Yeah. This is where it really gets exciting on opening day, is they had the whole Disneyland stage line, which actually included stagecoaches, Yellowstone coaches, surreys, Conestoga wagons, buckboards, and buggies, most of which were actually used in the parades. But the stagecoaches and Conestoga wagons, that was one of the main attractions at Frontierland, along with...
Are we going to get to some mules?
Pack mules. Or the mule pack. Yeah. Walt actually bought 30 mules for $50 each. They only had 15 saddles. Yeah, and they were actually super cheap. And even their feed was super cheap. But they only had 15 saddles. But what would happen is they would have basically like 15 mules divided by 2, which that's not 7.5, but I think they would have 7 in one mule train and 8 in the other, with like a stagehand or like a boss, a big guy, to kind of take them along. But they only had 15 saddles. So this was a very slow loading attraction, as you can imagine. Basically, like only 7 people getting on and then walking as fast as mules do through the whole thing and then back. And there's only 2 sets of those. And then there was
they needed their union break and switched out.
And then, right at about halfway point of the day, they would switch out the 2 sets of mules to the other set.
I can't imagine them happening today.
Yeah, and it's amazing how long the mule pack lasted.
Right.
It went all the way, I believe, till 1973. Basically, this is just opening day.
Gotcha.
They're scrapping along, trying to get all of these attractions open because the park really only took a year to build. And so that's why opening day was so rustic looking, so dusty, and all of that. When I mentioned that they had stagecoaches and Conestoga wagons and the mule pack, that they actually went on 3 separate tracks.
Right.
And with the mule pack being on the innermost circle, and the Conestoga wagons, which was a little bit slower, would be on just outside of them, and then the stagecoach went alongside the Rivers of America, and it was the largest kind of circle, and they actually went pretty fast. So fast, in fact, that it actually tipped over quite a lot.
Oh my gosh.
And if you can imagine that.
I cannot imagine that.
Like Lawsuit Central.
Yeah, wow. Like
You
right
know,
next to the river.
Especially as high up as, like, if you were to ride, first off, you got a bunch of people inside the stagecoaches.
Oh my gosh.
With not the best views, and a couple of people riding up on top with the driver. And yeah, when those things tip over, yikes.
But I bet no one even thought to sue back then.
No.
They were just like, this
it's
is
basically,
great.
Here, have a free day pass for to come back.
Exactly.
But then, Walt wanted more traffic on the river. And he had some ideas. Because first off, there's that island in the middle. And he's going to work on that. But he wanted something even quicker. And so he, on Christmas Day of 1955, the Mike Fink keelboats opened up.
I've never experienced those.
That is unfortunate because those are awesome.
I was always scared to do them here in the Magic Kingdom.
Oh, that's too bad.
And then they were gone.
Yeah, they did not last too long after that. But yeah, that was basically to increase traffic on the river. They did that, and eventually the second Mike Fink keelboat opened, and then they were both going across. The drivers would sometimes stage like little jousting things, like on stage, where they would kind of similar to the hijinks that you would see in the actual movie or the TV show. Where they would actually get dunked into the water.
I think that's why I was scared to go on. Did they do that in Magic Kingdom too?
No, by that time,
no.
That was just in the early days.
Well, I remember them, would they make them go back and forth?
Yeah.
Like, that's what was scary to me.
Because
as a
they
child,
they seemed very top heavy.
Yeah.
Because they went up pretty high, and then on top of that, there's a couple of rows of guests sitting up on top. Just like the stage coaches, just like the Conestoga wagons, and the Mike Fink keelboats, there are some passengers or some guests who actually had less than ideal views by being placed inside. And then they also had seats on the outside. And so you always want those so you have the better view.
What's more reason to come back again and get the better seats? I think that was a constant theme. But then what happened in 1956?
That's the thing. See, by this point, Walt Disney had realized that Disneyland was a success. It only took till September of 1955 for the first million guests to go into the park. So by this time, he knew this thing was a success, and he needed to plus his park. So basically, they actually had, I believe in April of 1956, right next to the Mark Twain landing, they installed a gigantic billboard advertising the opening of Tom Sawyer Island. They said kind of coming June 1st. Tom Sawyer Island was actually designed mostly by Walt Disney himself. He actually took home a piece of paper and basically drew the way it should be. And he told his designers, build this.
He would know.
Yeah, and if you think about it, Tom Sawyer Island is kind of like the perfect attraction. All other attractions, they kind of everything's predetermined for you, what you're going to see, how you're going to see it. Tom Sawyer Island, you go out on a raft, and you basically have all these possibilities. You can turn left, you can go right, you can go through a cave, or not. Do what you want.
And see a fort.
Yeah. It actually opened on June 16th, 1956, and was actually attended by winners of a Best Tom Sawyer and Best Becky Thatcher contest that they had in Hannibal, Missouri.
How fun.
Yeah, it was won by Chris Winkler and Pervaloo Smith, and actually appeared at the opening of Tom Sawyer Island in costume as Tom Sawyer and Becky Thatcher. And they christened the raft with another bottle with water from rivers around America. But if you think about some of the awesome features they have, Injun Joe's Cave, with the bottomless pit that has a bunch of weird wind noises that, is it wind? Or is it a lost Injun Joe? I don't know.
Very scary.
Very spooky. But there's lots of narrow turns, split sets of halls, crawl spaces, and false passages. It's always fun to kind of get lost in there, in my opinion. But they had a Fort Wilderness.
Oh yeah,
the original Fort Wilderness.
Ours is Fort Sam Clemens.
That's right. That's the thing about this Tom Sawyer Island. There are all kinds of fun, like little hidden passageways, tunnels, kind of, tons of entrances, even like back doors, hidden hallways. It was so fun, and it still is. So they added the Rainbow Caverns mine train. So now you've got a mine train and the mule pack.
Tell me more about this mine train.
And so basically now they actually use the same pathway of each other, the stagecoaches and the Conestoga wagons. The mule pack had their own, but they added the arch, the natural arch bridge. That at one point the elevation change for the mule pack was quite a lot, because mules are very sturdy footed. They can handle it, and they go up quite a bit, and at one point they go over a natural arch bridge over the trains and the stagecoaches in a very narrow passageway.
Wow.
But it was quite high, and so the people in the train were told not to toot their whistle at that point, because they did not want a spooked mule. And
Can you imagine? I wonder if they learned that the hard way.
I don't think they learned that one the hard way.
Toot our horns.
As I mentioned, they included the little mining town of Rainbow Ridge that was added right there at the front, which you can even see parts of to this day
and
at the Big Thunder Mountain. Basically, you would go out by the river, over a bridge, and you'd see all kinds of animals, and then off into the very back where they actually had the Rainbow Desert, with all kinds of things, as like the old unfaithful geyser, a bunch of cactus that was kind of shaped like maybe people, colorful mud pots called the Devil's Paint Pots, bouncing rocks. And these were actually neat, because they would blow the whistle, and these rocks would actually that looked like they were balancing. They would start spinning and look like they would maybe fall on the guests. And then the fun part about this is they would go then through the Rainbow Mountain into the Rainbow Caverns to see Rainbow Falls. And this was the neatest thing, because it was like the coolest thing, both literally and, just very cool. Because you go into the dark, and using blacklight, they would have all of these water features. I think there were like 22 water features in all, including waterfalls, pools, things like Bridal Veil Falls, Staircase Falls, Silver Threads Among the Gold.
I want to go there.
And Rainbow Falls was the coolest part of all, because they actually had 8 different colors all in one waterfall. And you would think, how can they do that? How can they make it so that the waters don't run into each other and create one giant thing? But they found a way.
I really, really wish I could see it. This is very depressing for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. We can probably watch old videos and see.
From 1977 though, there's probably not that many.
No, probably not. They actually had either the engineer of the train or the brakeman in the back would give a live spiel. And at some points they would have like bobcats trying to pounce on you, and coyotes, all kinds of fun animals. As the years progressed, Walt wanted even more traffic on the rivers of America.
I want more traffic.
More boats, please. So at this point, we already have the Mark Twain. We have the 2 keel boats and the rafts going back and forth. But Walt wanted more. So he ordered for the Columbia, the SS Columbia, the sailing ship Columbia, a full-size replica of the first sailing ship to carry the Stars and Stripes around the world.
Which is what you tell me every time we go on it.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Plus, I know the whole spiel.
Yeah.
But it's set from Boston Town, the original one, in 1787.
But not from then.
On a 3-year journey all the way across the world. And, of course, if you now know, they actually have a below decks museum. That didn't open until 1964.
Oh, really? So you couldn't go down there?
Not
or
originally.
It just wasn't a thing?
It was just not a thing.
You could go down there and there was nothing there?
No, you could not go down there.
Ah.
They opened that later.
Okay. I will say, if you're listening to this and you have not been on the sailing ship Columbia, you are doing yourself a disservice.
Oh, a huge disservice.
It's really fun.
It really is.
And it goes around and they do the actual, well, not actual, I guess, but like the cannon shooting thing. It's very loud.
I love it.
But they warn you so you can cover your ears.
It used to be they would do that cannon and you would hear cannon coming back from the fort on Times Square Island, but they got rid of that feature.
Wow. I missed everything.
And now is the time for the big expansion. By this point, Disneyland is just pumping on all cylinders. And so Walt, he's got his brand new train. The mule pack are going strong, but he wants it to even be better. So, he's done these live action true life adventure films, and he wants to use these as his inspiration. So he basically, once again, for 1960, he completely redoes this whole area. And this is where they get rid of the stagecoaches and the Conestoga wagons. They are to be no more. And it's just going to be the mule pack through Nature's Wonderland, as well as the mine train through Nature's Wonderland. And this is going to be inspired, it's originally already inspired by the Living Desert, but now they're adding Beaver Valley, Bear Country, and Olympic Elk, maybe even the Vanishing Prairie. And this is where they add Cascade Peak, a lot of people's favorite feature from the rivers of America. This gigantic mountain right alongside the rivers where they had twin waterfalls coming off of it, where the train would kind of go behind the waterfall right alongside the river. Just the coolest thing.
There's so many bears in this. Is this like accurate? This map thing? This is
absolutely
how many?
Completely accurate. We'll definitely
put
include
this on there, but
an image of that. But yeah,
there's so many.
Yeah. But yeah, they made it a figure eight to make it last longer, and so they expanded the Living Desert or the Rainbow Desert part of it, and they added, as I mentioned, Beaver Valley, Bear Country, and as I mentioned, after you went around Cascade Peak and underneath those twin waterfalls, you would enter another tunnel, and you'd pop out of that tunnel, which you've seen before.
I have.
That tunnel that they still have right across the way from Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, and they had
the jumping fish,
and went over a giant trestle where you would enter Bear Country and see bears, like doing all kinds of things,
bear things.
Yeah, fishing, trying to catch fish, scratching, sleeping, all kinds of bear hijinks. There were quite a lot of bears.
Why isn't it still there today?
I know. That's the unfortunate part, is after a while, nature did its own thing onto,
a little too much upkeep.
Yeah, maintenance, kind of drifted a little bit. There actually were some very interesting things that happened when they first opened. Because Disneyland was still new, some, actual live critters would find their way into this faux desert area. Fun. And see like a roadrunner or some bird there and attack it, thinking, easy prey, and then whoops. So the maintenance folks would sometimes come and see a mangled critter that they would have to replace. Yeah, they eventually figured out ways to make that not happen. There actually were quite a few other things. I want to talk a little bit about some eateries that they had in Frontierland, because they had quite a few.
That have changed quite a bit over the years.
Yeah. First off, they had the Plantation House, or the Chicken Plantation, which was right up by the Rivers of America, essentially kind of right where New Orleans Square is right now. They served chicken, of course, fried chicken, by the Swift and Company. It was removed in 1961 to make way for New Orleans Square, which would not open until 5 years later. There's a whole story with that. But
in our New Orleans Square episode,
there was another place that had another restaurant that was originally the Casa de Fritos, where they served up Mexican food and
delicious
Fritos, and where they had that fantastic kind of vending machine where you could go in there and see the Frito Kid, and where he would call back to Klondike and say, you could install a nickel, and he'd say, another bag of delicious Fritos coming up. absolute craziest thing. And if you look at it, the fun, cool the figure of the Frito kid, it's just the wildest thing. Eventually, the Casa de Fritos moved to where the Zocalo, area is, the Rancho del Zocalo.
I love it
moved there. I had mentioned earlier the Indian village. That actually was when the park opened, where kind of like in the corner where Adventureland and New Orleans Square are now, even parts of what are now the Jungle Cruise. It was way back there alongside the railroad. Eventually, the Indian village, they came upon all kinds of labor issues. And they were left by 1971. But just in time for Bear Country, which was carved out of Frontierland, which is where they put in the Country Bear Jamboree, which actually premiered at Walt Disney World first. But it was originally intended for Mineral King, which was a ski resort that Walt was going to put where Sequoia National Park and Canyon National Parks are right now.
Fun.
Yeah. And then part of the Indian Village, they actually had what were initially called Indian Village War Canoes. That came from that. Those were from 1956. Another boat traffic, if you will.
So many boats.
Yeah, that actually started out there, and they were eventually renamed the Davy Crockett Explorer Canoes back
Which
in
makes
1971.
sense. Like, why didn't they call them that to begin with? And those were still open up until recently, weren't they?
The Explorer Canoes?
Yeah.
They're open to this very day, kind of.
Yeah, like until the park was not open.
Yeah, they're still going.
Because I've been on them. I actually
Yes,
did something that's old.
Uh-huh. I love going on those Explorer Canoes. Here's a hack.
They're a workout.
They're a workout if you work out. Here's a hack for you.
That's true. Don't tell everyone that.
No,
Then
don't tell her-
then
no,
the boat will never move.
Well, I tell you, not everyone's going to listen to this. But I go on there, and maybe I don't row as much. Maybe I take a little more pictures than rowing. Because eventually they do come across people who don't row. And, the two guys or ladies who are on the boat, they actually can get the job done. Their job
but
is
you'll be shamed.
Yes, they do shame you. But, what are they going to do? Throw you in the river?
I bet they wish that they could.
But in all honesty, even if you are rowing, it's a totally unique
it's
vantage
fun unless
point.
like the sun is beating down on you.
Oh, yeah.
If you're prepared for that, then
it's a very unique thing. And, they've already gotten rid of them from Walt Disney World.
I know.
They do still have them in Tokyo. But it's just a very unique, fun thing.
I bet everyone rows in Tokyo. Did
They-
you row in Tokyo?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I mean, come on. Although I did also take a lot of
Bring
photos.
shame to your family if you did not do that. So,
So
is
I
that it?
believe- Well, there actually was one more quote-unquote attraction. And that, of course, is the park's oldest attraction, the petrified tree.
Oh, right.
That
wonderful gift.
Yes, Walt actually came across this in the Pike's Petrified Forest in Colorado, and he thought, this would make a great anniversary gift for my wife. And so he presented it to her in 1956 in their 31st anniversary.
And she said, wow,
And she said, yeah, pretty much. Wow,
just
thanks.
what I wanted.
You know what? Let's put that at Disneyland. I don't really have any place for that giant thing on my mantle. Why don't you put it in the park? And it actually took them a full year to install it. It was until their 32nd anniversary when they actually had a little dedication.
It was just in the garage until then.
I guess. Actually, no, it was actually in the forest. It was still in Colorado.
Weird.
It took them that long to get it out there and
It's
install
very
it.
heavy.
Yeah, he literally, went along the that petrified forest in Colorado, picked it out and said, I want that one.
Wow.
And during that time, actually, that petrified forest came up for sale. Because it wasn't part of the national park
What
system
is
or
it?
anything
Is it
like
still
that.
there now?
I'm not sure. I need to look into that. But
That's
the
sad
owner,
if not.
knowing that Walt, was interested in this
Yeah.
petrified tree, actually came to Walt and said, would you like to buy the whole thing? And they
he
had to
said
tell him,
no.
that's okay. I'll just keep the one tree.
Wow. And now it's just a weird thing that people sometimes take photos
love
of.
it. I mean,
yeah, it's a very uniquely
I haven't
Disneyland
waited
thing.
too much in line for it, but but it's just one of those very unique, fun Disneyland curiosities.
If that doesn't make you want to build a time machine and go back
I
to
know.
original or like mid-range Frontierland time frame, then I don't know what will. Because it makes me want to do that.
Yeah, it makes me want to do it, and I actually did get to experience it. I wanted to kind of go farther back in the past and see all the things that I missed. Because my first visit to the park was on my 4th birthday, 1974. So yes, I did get to see some of the mine train through Nature's Wonderland.
But you missed out on the stagecoaches?
I missed out on stagecoaches, Conestoga wagons, and even the mule pack.
You said you went on the mules.
Turns out my mother told me, no, I went on the mules at Knott's Berry Farm.
You just remembered during the course of this recording?
Oh, I don't know.
You told me in the beginning that you went on the mules.
Apparently I was wrong.
Okay.
I have been on no mules at Disneyland.
Please do not do further fact checking on this episode.
I thought I had, but no, the dates don't work out for me.
At least you remembered it. All right. Well, if
Yeah.
it was there until...
No, this was there till 77.
Oh, okay. So the mules were gotten rid of in 1960?
I believe, no, it was 1974, right around there.
Oh, okay.
Right
So you
around
probably
my
just
first
missed
visit.
them.
Yeah, I just missed
Who's going to
like,
put a baby on a mule? Nobody.
My mother probably would have. I will have to get back to you. I'm going to check with her because
All right.
I'm not totally sure.
We'll do an addendum if we find out you have been on there.
My mother's definitely been on there. But I hope that I have. But I definitely don't remember it.
All right. Well, I certainly enjoyed our trip through Nature's Wonderland and Frontierland.
Oh, yeah.
And we hope you did too. And we will be doing further deep dives of fun Disneylands and worlds. And
who knows where we'll go.
I know.
Because there is so much more to explore.
Yes. If you are watching the video, hello.
Howdy.
And you want to hear the whole thing and all those hilarious jokes that we told that you're not hearing, make sure you listen to the audio version wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. I don't know what we're on. We're on everything. Just look for Up the Waterfall there and you will find us. There will also be a blog post with all of these links in it at zannaland.com, so you can find that out. But I assume if you're hearing this, then you've figured something out by then. So we thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time up the waterfall.
Bye now.